the brahmanas, Oshani of the drugs.
Chandrama Manasojata. But here we find that Soma was born from the tears in the eyes of Atri. This appears contradictory to the Vedic information, but actually it is not. For this birth of the moon is understood to have taken place in another millennium. When tears appear in the eyes because of jubilation, the tears are soothing. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Drigbhaya Ananda Sudbhaya Eta Evam Vitamaya. Here the word Drigbhaya means from the tears of jubilation. Therefore, Vitamaya, full of soothing rays. In the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 4.1.15, we find this verse, Atre Patni Anasuya This verse describes that Anasuya, the wife of Atri Rishi, bore three sons, Soma, Durvasa, and Dattatreya. It is said that at the time of conception, Anasuya was impregnated by the tears of Atri.
Yes. So, every time I get to give a Bhagavatam class, I always get like a very nice snippet of the whole story. And this time also, it's, as we read, it's about Soma, the moon god, and his activities, but also his exalted position. You know, he wasn't an ordinary character, so to speak. He was different than all of us. He was actually born of tears of jubilation. And he was appointed as the director of brahmanas, drugs, and luminaries. It's actually a very important position, and his responsibilities were like quite important, you know? So this presentation, I just did it so I myself don't forget all the points. We will try to go through it. Please forgive if any mishaps happen during this presentation. Please move on, Prabhu. Okay. So while preparing for the class, which was 2 a.m., I was wondering why all the chapters in this canto just keep talking about like dynasties. If we read all of these, it's all about, you know, who's whose son, who did what, who came after who. But so why is this canto named Liberation? You know, how is it all related? Would anyone like to play the guessing game? Yes, Ro.
I remember in previous classes, they were talking about that these family members were spiritual, so they weren't pulled down by anything material. And so in that way, they're like our spiritual family. And they're liberated, and they're our spiritual family, so we really took them in a spiritual way.
Yes, I agree. They're our spiritual family, and they're highly elevated. We should be speaking of devotees who are highly elevated to try and learn something. Yes.
I think all the stories that we read in this canto seemingly seem to have some of the mentions of how three moods of material nature affect everyone. And then it said that anyone who is not affected by three moods of material nature and is able to tolerate that purge is eligible for liberation. Krishna says that, so maybe that's why.
Yes, Devanshi always just steals my script. And yesterday I also didn't sleep, so I don't know when she got the time, but right on track. Anyone else? Yes. So, we're meant to study the exemplary lives of devotees and kings. The dynasties include great saintly kings and who ruled with devotion to God, showing that righteous governance and dharma lead to liberation. And their lives demonstrate detachment, surrender to the Lord, selfless service, and qualities essential for moksha, which is liberation. So through their example, we get to learn, why to surrender, how to surrender, what happens if you don't, what happens if you do, what is the difference. Because there's also examples of the kings who did not follow the righteous path. And so the dynasties also describe some fallen kings who became entangled in material desires and suffered. And by contrasting between these devotional kings and some materialistic ones, and some very highly elevated, and others highly elevated too, but sometimes having a little fall down here and there, the Bhagavatam teaches us that true liberation comes from Krishna consciousness and not from mere political power or position. And we learn this by a lot of examples. There's, descriptions of everything. There are kings who were devotees ever since they were born until they died. And they did everything in the right way, There are some kings who at first weren't exactly devotees and were just looking for political power, but then their hearts changed due to some of the other circumstances. And then there were some who were devotees, practicing, but had little fall downs, like our moon god, Soma. And we also get to learn. So when we were reading Bhagavad Gita during, I forgot, with Prabhupada Priya Prabhu, someone also asked, why is it important to learn about the whole succession? Why do we need to know about who came after who? And Prabhupada Priya Prabhu stated a few reasons, and one of the reasons that she shared was that it is to understand that all of these stories are not imaginary, that all of these people really existed, and we can trace back all the way to Krishna. We can trace it back, and that's how we know that it's legit. And so it's important. And move on, please, Prabhu. So I was talking about why this canto is named Liberation when we're just talking about people. So I would also like to talk about the chronology that leads to the 9th canto. So canto 1 to 5 set up the cosmic and philosophical foundation, basically the creation, structure, and duties of everyone. And canto 6 through 8 focus on devotional surrender, from examples like Ajamil, Prahlad Maharaj, and Gajendra. And canto 9, which is liberation, then presents the dynasties of kings, some liberated through devotion and others fallen due to materialism. But it also shows how there's hope for every fall down. It is not the end of the world, and you can always bounce back. So this canto contrasts material attachment with spiritual freedom, and it also prepares us for the 10th canto, which is Krishna's pastimes. And so it's basically setting the scene. Like when we start reading the Bhagavad Gita, there's setting the scene where we understand why the whole conversation between Krishna and Arjuna happened, and how it all took place, and what was the importance, what was all at stake. So all these 9 cantos basically set the scene for Krishna's appearance. And I just thought it'd be interesting to share. So yes, we'll move on. So, okay, what does Soma's story teach us? Let's rewind. You don't need to rewind, Prabhu, I'll rewind. So we start with, how Soma came into existence. So whom was he born of? Okay, tears of jubilation. Of whose? Atri Rishi. Right. And who was Atri? Son of Brahma. So it's like Krishna's navel, from Krishna's navel comes Brahma, and Brahma's son, right, and Atri's son, Soma, right? So it's like the chain is not that long, and when sometimes there's a long line of members. For example, have you played this game where one person just does some kind of gestures and the other person has to do the same until the last person, and if it changes, we all lose the game. So sometimes it is said that when there's a lot of people involved, stories, the meanings and the essence gets lost in translation, which obviously doesn't happen in our disciplic succession. But there's no argument as to why Soma behaved the way he did after his position was so exalted. He had amazing father, amazing grandfather, and amazing great-grandfather, so we are right now looking at his position, right? And then what happens? He gets a bit puffed up with pride. And what does he do? He kidnaps Brihaspati's wife, And who is Brihaspati?
Son of Akash.
What is
Spiritual master of demigods.
Yes, he's a spiritual master of the demigods. And you know how it is said that the spiritual master's wife is our mother and should be considered mother. And overlooking all of that, he kidnaps Brihaspati's wife. And it's just mind-boggling to think that something like this would have happened. And then what happens? And then Shukracharya is like, my enemy's enemy is my friend. And so he sides with Soma and he fights against the demigods. And the great battle between the demons and the demigods begin. Again, I feel like they fight in every canto, but they never learn. So that happened, and basically a few points that I feel like I want to share is that we should realize that senses are really strong. His position was exalted, his responsibilities were something else, and he was learned. He had all the knowledge, he knew everything, but still Maya is so strong, our senses can be so strong that it can just, you won't even realize when it happened, what it happens. How attachment develops from just contemplating on the sense objects. It is so subtle, we don't even understand. We just think of it once, then our mind goes there again and again, and we don't realize, but we're thinking of it all the time, and then we don't realize when the line between imagination and reality blurs and we slip and things happen. So one thing we can learn from Soma's example is that senses are really strong. And if you are a devotee, like we were discussing in previous classes, it doesn't mean that you're shielded from all these things. If you're a devotee, if you have, you're an exalted person if you're a devotee, if you're a practicing devotee. And it is said that the leaders are appointed because they have certain qualities and they have their senses in control. That is why they are fit to lead the other people. But then if your position gives you some kind of pride and it corrupts, and so your position doesn't mean that it will protect you. You should not become complacent thinking that, oh, I will be protected. Why? Because I am so and so. I was appointed by so and so, and I became who I became because I did so and so. You should not think that way, because that's a pit. You fall without understanding. And something else, it was Brihaspati's wife. I keep emphasizing this, but it's just unbelievable. His spiritual master's wife he kidnaps, so it's such a big offense, right? And it is said that when common people commit some crimes, they get some kind of punishment. But if the police officer commits the same crime, he gets a more severe punishment. Why? Because he knows the laws inside out. He's supposed to protect the laws and protect everyone else. And if he's the one going against all the people and committing some kind of crimes, then who are we supposed to trust? So offenses, when committed knowing what's right and wrong, the result is severe. And it's not like Soma did not know that, but he just ended up doing something. So, well, offenses can be committed when we're under the trap of Maya, when our senses are not in control. We make offenses left and right. Also, when we read the chapter, towards the end, Soma ends up repenting and he realizes his mistakes and he sincerely tries to revert those, and he is saved. Because if the story actually ended on him just being, like punished, or him just being like thrown away, then it wouldn't teach us anything. All we would understand is that, okay, do crimes and this happens. But what if we actually end up committing that crime and we don't know what to do? It also tells us, and it also makes us realize that it's not the end of the world. It's okay. As long as you sincerely want to change, as long as you sincerely repent, it's okay. So a few of the analogies that are not exactly mentioned, but I liked or came up with, I would like to share it. Yes. So the first one is called the moon's phases. The first one. The moon, Soma, wanes, diminishes in brightness after his sin, just as our spiritual glow fades when we're attached to matter. So although we're practicing devotees, we are not shielded from attachments or anything else. So we sometimes slip and fall too. After Brihat Prabhu's class, I was also thinking about the 9 stages of bhakti, and how I realized that I know for sure that I have Shraddha, because I know that for sure I want Krishna in my life, and I understand that it is right, and so I want to do this. That is why I have faith. And then I got attached to the devotees because they were just so nice and I liked their association. So Sadhu Sangha came by. And then I actually understood the chanting, the process of chanting and the importance and Krishna's pastimes and everything else. So I also started reading, chanting, and speaking of the Lord. But then when it's time for Anartha Nivritti, after every other fall down, I just think to myself that, oh, maybe I don't know what I'm doing, and maybe this is not for me. Maybe I don't have what it takes to get to Krishna, and maybe my determination is not there yet, and maybe I just cannot make it. But something that Kalakanta Prabhu told me about this is that when you realize that you're at the stage of Anartha Nivritti, you must be tolerant. There's nothing else you can do. Up until Anartha Nivritti, Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, and Bhajana Kriya, it's all in your control. It's all something that you can choose to do consciously. But when it comes to Anartha Nivritti, you have no power. You just have to wait for Krishna's mercy, for his merciful glance, and you just have to wait. So the moon's light is reflected sunlight, right? It has no independent glow. Similarly, our spiritual brightness depends on Krishna's mercy. So sometimes we end up thinking that, oh, I understand what's going on because I know this and this verse. I understand what's going on because this and this devotee thinks I'm great. And I know that I'm somewhere because I think I'm there. But what we don't realize is that similarly as the moon's light is not the moon's light, but it's reflected sunlight. And actually, what to speak of sunlight? Sunlight is not even sun's light. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that the splendor of the sun is my splendor, right? Even the sun doesn't have his own sunlight without Krishna's mercy. So who are we to think we are somewhere we are by my greatness? It's all because of Krishna's mercy. And our spiritual brightness, our spiritual aura is not our doing, but it's just Krishna's mercy. This is the verse. And we have to realize that fluctuation in our reflection of Krishna's grace, they sometimes dim and sometimes shine very brightly. What I'm trying to say here is that our sadhana can look like the phases of the moon, and that's okay. Sometimes we're all, like, okay, I am the purest devotee of all. I am chanting my rounds, I'm reading, I'm doing this, I'm serving, all of that. I'm doing everything. And sometimes, oh, I have one more round to chant. I wish I could just, watch this movie because I really am not interested. Oh, do I have to go? It's service hours? Oh my gosh, I wish I can just finish this one series because it's really interesting. So it sometimes can look like that, but it's okay. It's okay. We'll move on. We'll skip this because there's a typo. And there's another analogy that I really like. It's the garden weed analogy. And it says that attachments, so a farmer, before sowing any kind of seeds, he preps the soil to make sure that it's fertile, so that all the seeds can grow very nicely. But and so he only grows the seeds of fruits and flowers that he thinks is beneficial for him. But then, does only the flower and fruit trees and plants grow? No, the weeds are inevitable. You don't sow the seeds, you don't know where the hell they're coming from, but they're there. And they will grow faster than any seed that you've planted. So the garden weeds analogy is that attachments are like weeds. They grow without planting, they grow without our planning. And a gardener doesn't shame the soil. Is it the soil's fault that the weeds are growing? No. We are taking a lot of care in prepping the soil. We're taking a lot of care in perfecting our sadhana, but attachments just happen like unwanted weeds. And what do we have to do? We just have to keep tending to it. We just have to keep removing the weeds as soon as we notice them. Take notice of them and remove them. Nip it at the bud. Yes. So I really like this analogy because it makes sense, and sometimes we end up being unkind to ourselves, thinking that I thought of this, oh, I don't deserve to reach out to Krishna anymore because he's doing everything he can for me, but I still keep slipping into Maya. How do I deserve Krishna? How do I deserve to write letters to him? How do I deserve to pray to him? How do I deserve to ask anything from him? But it's okay. What matters is you're trying your best. All Krishna is looking for is our sincerity. And he perfects all our results. We don't have any control over them anyways. So keep tending to your soil. Next. We're gonna keep it very short. Okay. Should you be concerned about all these attachments and all these everythings? Should you really be concerned? Do you have any control over them? Who would like to share some of what their realizations or their thoughts?
Attachments?
Yes. Should you be concerned about your attachments? Should you beat yourself over it? Where do you draw the line between being concerned and being very negatively stressed about your problems? Devanshi Prabhu.
So, I've heard from Prabhupada that some healthy guilt is good. as that guilt is not turning into low self-esteem, and it's just, you're just reprimanding yourself fully that I'm the most abominable person on this earth. Even though we sang that in the bhajan today, but like we should not like, in the bhajan they're actually feeling it like that, and they're not in that stage. They are poor devotees, but they're feeling it, they're trying to give us some prayers to make. But healthy guilt is okay, but if it's turning into low self-esteem, then we need to stop.
Yeah. When the guilt is like, oh, I did this and I feel very guilty, I am going to write a letter to Krishna explaining myself and asking for forgiveness, or I'm going to chant a few more rounds, or I'm going to talk to a mentor and figure out what I can do about the situation. That's good. That you should have. But when it turns to, oh, I don't deserve Krishna, oh, I don't deserve the devotees, I made some offense, oh, I should just go away so I can stop committing those offenses and so I can make everyone happy with me not being there. That is where you draw the line. Yes, Prabhu.
I heard someone recently say that when you feel like overly guilty, it's you being, or you feel low self-esteem, that it's you being self-conscious. And when you're being self-conscious, you're not being Krishna-conscious. So you had already said the solution is like to write a letter to Krishna, talk to an older devotee. You're focusing on Krishna. So be more Krishna-conscious and not as self-conscious.
Yes. So where do you draw the line when things are taking you away from Krishna and the devotees? That's where you draw the line. And what do? You ring the sirens and you go to your mentor and your friends, hopefully devotee friends. So yeah, it all came all together. That's a bit sad. But so the first one is that it's natural, but it's not permanent. The root cause is that the jiva is constitutionally a lover, but in the material world, that love is misplaced. As long as we're not filling our hearts with all of Krishna, some place will be left for everything else. So it is natural that you have some attachments because we haven't perfected our sadhana, our bhakti. So it's okay, it's natural, but it's not permanent. You know, all beings are deluded by birth, by dualities of desire and hate. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. But Srila Prabhupada also says that the living entity is eternal, but trapped in temporary identities, which breed attachments. And what do we have to do? We just have to first be aware that it exists, and second, try to find a solution. That's all you need to do, you know? An example is that a child clings to a toy and it cries if it's lost. And similarly, we sometimes cling to things, relationships, careers, comfort, forgetting that they're all toys in the grand scheme of life. They hold little to no value. Yes, and the second is progression is greater than perfection. In the sense that if you were perfect, then there would be no progress. And if there is some progress happening, then you should realize you're not perfect. So it's okay, you know, realizing that you're still in the process of getting rid of all the impurities and attachments that you might have, and realizing that it's okay, it's a work in progress. Mistakes are supposed to happen, because how else am I going to learn? You know, I'm not the smartest, and that's okay. You know, Krishna says that if someone sincerely desires, he gives them the intelligence that by which they can go to him, you know? So we don't need to aim to be perfect. All we need to aim is to just keep progressing in the right direction by the help of the devotees, the shastras, and the holy name. The last one is that we should realize that Krishna's mercy is the safety net. You know, Krishna says that the one who's I'm forgetting the exact translation. Please correct me because I know I'm wrong here. But he says that even if someone falls down from an exalted position, we should overlook because he's still serving me sincerely. Something along the lines. Prabhu, can you please help?
He checks it around. Yeah. If someone does the most abominable activity, if they're properly situated in their determination, they're to be considered a saint, sadhu.
Yes, if they're properly situated in their determination, they should be considered a sadhu. And so the solution basically is that attachment, it breaks whenever we transfer the ownership of the attachment to Krishna. You know, whatever you do, whatever you eat, offer it to me. That's what Krishna says, right, in Bhagavad Gita. And Srila Prabhupada also says that a plate is clean if used for Krishna and contaminated if used for sense gratification. But a clean plate is needed for the prasadam to taste good. So offer everything to Krishna, all the attachments that you might have. Just say, Krishna, I'm unable to deal with this, and please help me. I am unable to even reach out to anyone because I'm just so embarrassed of my position. Please send help. And you know, Krishna, it doesn't take long for Krishna to hear your praise. He's right here. You know, even before your brain hears it, your heart hears it. So Krishna hears you. And as long as you sincerely want Krishna, nothing can stop you. You know, these obstacles, they are very important. These impediments that we face, they're very important because they make our determination very resolute. You know, we keep realizing over and over again, every time we become complacent, something happens, and we realize, okay, I am sorry, Krishna, I'm going to lock in, and I'm going to change my ways. So it's okay, and let Krishna be your safety net. Krishna can't save you unless you want to be saved. So go to Krishna. Yes. So do I have anything else? Actually, don't. What I was trying to show from Soma's story is that your position or your responsibilities, who you are, who you know, what you know, all of it doesn't guarantee that you will always stay at Krishna's lotus feet. Maya can swoop you away just like that. So we shouldn't become complacent. We should be aware of pride, through Soma's example especially, because it's very subtle, but it makes us do things that are unimaginable and unimaginably offensive. So we can all learn from Soma's story. And it's not like Soma is not a pure devotee. It's not like Soma's under the modes of material nature, but he's playing a role, just like an actor in a play. Like in Bhakti Marg Maharaj's play, I'm playing lust. And although I must admit, I do have some desires, but I'm not exactly as a lust I'm portraying. But I'm still imperfect. Pure devotees sometimes play roles in Krishna's leelas for his pleasure, but it doesn't mean that they're fallen. So don't curse Soma, please. He's an exalted devotee. Hare Krishna. We have very little time for questions or reflections, but we'll take what we have. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, wonderful class, wonderful presentation. You said attachment is like a weed growing in the garden of our spiritual life.
Could you be a tad bit louder?
Yeah, attachment is like a weed growing in the garden. I feel like it's not just attachment, there's like aparats, and sometimes we fall down because of those aparats, because of those attachment, some desires, whatever. How do we see that, right? How is it like, how can we see it quickly? Because it takes time to realize.
Yes.
Like example, when it happened with me, you can realize it in your sadhana. Like if you used to read, you can understand you are not reading that eventually. Even the first thing is chant. If you have, because when we have a prada thing, so like whenever I felt like we can think in our mind, we are that conscious, so that we know we did something, but we are like, no, I cannot do that thing, purely what is syndrome. But then you just chant one round, and then you get to know, like how I recognize this. So whenever I feel like I do this, so I just chant around, and then you can know the attentiveness of your own, and then from there you can know. Then you have to look like where I did mistake. Then you can ask your devotee friends, like there is something wrong to you, and you can go to them. Even if you did nothing, you can just ask sorry. So that can help. Or be nice to everyone.
So it reflects in your sadhana.
My experience.
Would you like to repeat your question again, just in
My
case?
question was, how do we realize that that there is an attachment, there is some aparat that we are doing?
Yeah, I feel a little disturbed in my heart. So it was similar to what the she was saying. I noticed that my state of peace of mind, satisfaction, Krishna consciousness is thrown off, and I feel some tension in my heart. And then I reflect back, oh, okay, I was a little bit short with that devotee. Yeah. So you can, if you're sensitive, you can feel it in your heart.
Yes.
Krishna will give you the indication.
For me, I immediately get attracted to, oh, let's watch this movie. Let's talk to this one friend I haven't talked to in a while. Although I know I'm not gonna get anything out of it. I really feel like I want to eat this right now. Can I get a pizza? All of those thoughts, they just make me realize, oh, I'm doing something. Something's happening. So there will always be like an indication. Yes, Devanshu.
I think for myself, I find myself going into the lower nature. Like my adaptive child takes over the wise self. I think all of us were present in the seminar that Uttama and Bhaktin gave, and they gave us, and when we were divided into 4 quadrants, we discussed of like how our lower nature takes over. I think that is what happens to me when I think I've done enough crowd.
Yes.
Also, sometimes you yourself you might not realize when you're doing something wrong, but if you ask people around you, they might be able to tell you better sometimes. Because when when you are in that thing, you might not be able to have a third eye perspective. So sometimes it also helps if you can ask your friends around, who are always present, who know you better, so they can also help. That's feedback.
Yes, but the main thing is being aware. As soon as you're aware, you can do something about it. That is why it's like observing little changes in yourself and in devotees around you is really important. Yes.
I think like when we feel a little bit sure, we can just spend some time with ourselves and we can ask why are you feeling this way and what is going on, what did you do, like why are you feeling disturbed? And then doing the self-realization for a while, like just sitting with yourself and maybe writing or just self-realizing. I think that time you can just get to that you did something wrong, and that's like self-realizations.
Yeah, put yourself in timeout. I feel like put yourself in a timeout, and I personally feel like whenever I say I don't know what it is, I am just lying to myself, because all it takes is 2 minutes of sitting with myself, and everything that I did wrong ever since I was born, everything starts to come. Oh my God, why did you do this? Why did you do that? And so your mind, not that your mind, but you will realize sooner than later what happened and why it happened. Mainly, sometimes we're just too afraid to face it, or we just don't want to look at it or look at our actual real self. But yeah, putting yourself in a timeout really helps.
Some of the safety precautions that we can take is to have friends around us.
Yes, friends around us.
Friends around us who can like tell us, you know.
Yes.
They're very open with us. If they see something, they'll say something.
Yeah, if you see something, say something. Sarthak Prabhu, last but not the least.
Yes, I was also thinking that this knowledge of weed is very nice, and sometimes what we do or what we see people doing, that sometimes weed is growing, the attachment is growing, and instead of ripping it off, we just carve it. You know, people carve the gardens, so it looks beautiful. But if, for example, if we need a car, we don't, we don't rip it off. We say it's for the temple, or we just make it beautiful, make it look beautiful, make weed look beautiful. So it's important to rip it off rather than carving it in a very beautiful form.
Yeah, that is actually an amazing point, because sometimes we really water our weeds and we know that, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna rip it out tomorrow and tomorrow, but it grows bigger than any of the seeds that you've sown, and it takes all the nutrition from the soil and all the fertilizer just goes to that big plant, and all the other seedlings, they die. So yeah, don't let your weed control your gardens, because is everything okay?